In this video, we want to make sure that the user that we registered the first time is an admin user. So for that, we need to assign a role of admin to the user that gets created. How do we do that? That we'll have to do inside register.cshtml. We need to get something from dependency injection, and that is role manager. So here you see we have user manager. We'll copy this and paste it here for role manager. Role manager will be on identity role. So right here, rather than identity user, it will be identity role, and we'll call this underscore role manager. So in the constructor here, we will have role manager on identity role, and we'll call this role manager, and we'll have underscore role manager is equal to role manager. Once we have the role manager, then we will be assigning role once the user is created. So right here we are adding that, and in the result, if result is succeeded, that means user is created. We want to assign the role that we created in web constant, which is admin role and customer role. But if we go back to our database, and if we see ASP.NET roles table, that table is empty. So those two roles have not been created in the table. So first thing that we have to do is before we assign the user a role, we need to create those roles. So creation I can also take care in the get method right here, and for that we need the role manager. So before creating, we'll check that we will create a new role only if that role does not exist already in the database. So here we'll say await, and we'll say underscore role manager dot, there is method in there which is role exists async. This method checks if a role exists in the database or not. So we want to check for the admin role. If this does not exist, so we will add a not sign here, then we will create the role. So we'll say await underscore role manager dot, we have a method create async which expects an identity role. So we'll create new identity role, and inside here we can pass the role name which is inside web constants dot admin role. So we are creating admin role. Let's also create customer role. So this will be executed only first time. Let me show that to you. I'll add a debugger here, and let's run the application. Now the first time we go on the register page, it will actually throw an error message. Let me show that to you, and I'll explain you why. Here you see unable to resolve service for Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Identity.RoleManager. So think about this for a second. What we did is we added the role manager and we retrieved that using dependency injection. But did we register role manager to our container? No, we did not do that. So if we do not add that to our container, we are trying to retrieve it. It throws an error message that it doesn't know the implementation for the role manager. For that, we'll have to go to startup.cs class file and configure services. Here we have the default identity. Inside default identity, we do not have the roles, but we can customize the identity by calling just add identity, and along with identity user, we also want to add identity role. That will automatically configure the role manager. Now since you are not using the default identity, we have to add few more things like add default token providers. This will provide the tokens when you forget the password, and we have add default UI. Default UI will be for identity pages and few more things. So make sure you add those two methods, and with that, let's run our application again one more time. So you can see there are few things that you have to configure, but everything is linked together, and if you understand the core concepts or reason behind that, it all makes sense. If you go on register now, this will work and hit our debugging point. Right now, if I do F10, it will go inside the if condition because the roles does not exist. Let me execute the first line here and let me switch back to database. If I refresh the page, you see our first role has been created. So if we execute it again, we will have both the roles created in our database. Great. So now we have both the roles created. If we go back and refresh the page one more time, you see this time it will not go inside the if condition. That is because those roles already exist in the database. So we can leave this here and we have the roles that have been created in our database. Let's continue with this in the next video.